Today, we're tackling one of the biggest, most mind-bending questions in all of science. Where did life come from? We're going to be detectives on a cold case that's 4 billion years old. So, let's get into it. The whole investigation really boils down to this one question. How do you get from a bunch of rocks, water, and gas to, well, to us? How does simple chemistry suddenly wake up and become biology? Now, there's a scientific term for this whole process, abiogenesis, and what it really means is that life didn't just poof into existence. The theory is that it was a slow, gradual process where things just got more and more complex over time. So yeah, you and I, we're the detectives here, and this is the ultimate cold case. Think about it. The event happened billions of years ago. The crime scene, planet Earth, has been completely wiped clean and remade. And of course, there were no witnesses. Our job is to piece together clues from rocks, from chemistry, and even from our own DNA. Every good investigation starts at the scene of the crime. So, what did our planet actually look like way back when life was just getting started? First, you gotta forget everything you know about Earth today. No blue oceans, no green continents. The early Earth was, well, it was an alien world. We're talking about a chaotic, volcanic nightmare of a planet. The atmosphere was thick with stuff like nitrogen and carbon dioxide, but, and this is a huge point, there was no free oxygen to breathe. The sun was younger but way fiercer, blasting the surface with UV radiation. Oh, and it was constantly getting slammed by asteroids. Okay, but here's the really wild part. Look at the timing. Earth forms, and then barely 100 million years later, oceans start to appear. And then, even with all that chaos and bombardment going on, we see the first potential hints of life showing up around 4.1 billion years ago. Geologically speaking, that is incredibly fast. Life didn't wait around, it got started right away. So, if life somehow got its start in this totally hostile place, what was it even made of? Like any investigation, we need to find the physical evidence. In this case, the basic building blocks of biology. This brings us to one of the most famous experiments in the history of science. Back in 1952, these two scientists, Miller and Urey, decided to recreate the early Earth in a jar. They mixed together the gases they thought were in the atmosphere, added some water for an ocean, and then zapped it with electric sparks to act like lightning. And the result was just wow. Amino acids, the literal building blocks of proteins, they just formed, all by themselves. It was the first real proof that life's ingredients could have just happened. But get this, the ingredients weren't just being cooked up here on Earth. They were also being delivered from space. When we analyze meteorites that have fallen to Earth, we find they are packed with organic compounds. We're talking amino acids, the parts that make up DNA and RNA. It was like a constant cosmic delivery service for the building blocks of life. Okay, so we've got the parts. We know they could have formed here or been delivered from space. But a pile of bricks is not a house. So how in the world do these simple molecules start assembling themselves into the complex machinery we call life? And that question leads us to a massive paradox. It's a classic chicken or egg problem. See, inside our cells, DNA has all the blueprints for building proteins, but you need proteins to actually read the DNA and to build more DNA. So which one came first? You can't have one without the other. It's a real head-scratcher. Well, probably the most clever solution that scientists have come up with is something called the RNA world hypothesis. The idea is that before DNA and before proteins, there was RNA, that maybe the very first, simplest form of life was based entirely on this one molecule. So, why RNA? Because RNA is like a molecular Swiss Army knife. It has two superpowers. First, like DNA, it can store genetic information. And second, like a protein, it can fold itself up into little machines that make chemical reactions happen. It basically solves the paradox because it can be both the blueprint and the builder. It's the chicken and the egg all wrapped up in one molecule. So if this RNA world really existed, where did it happen? Right now, there are two prime suspect locations. You've got deep-sea hydrothermal vents, which are great because they're protected from all that nasty UV radiation and they're full of chemical energy. The downside is that everything gets diluted in the giant ocean. Then you've got shallow surface ponds. The big pro here is that they go through wet-dry cycles, which would concentrate all these chemicals and help them link up. But they're totally exposed to that harsh sunlight. The debate is still raging on this one. So we've talked about the how and the where, but what about the who? Can we actually track down our earliest known relative? Can we identify a prime suspect at the very base of the tree of life? Everybody meets Luca. Now, to be really clear, Luca is not the first life form. Luca is the last universal common ancestor. It's the organism that sits at the fork in the road from which everything alive today, bacteria, archaea, you, me, the trees outside, eventually came from. And what's really mind-blowing is what we can figure out about Luca just from genetics. We know it lived in a super hot, oxygen-free environment, probably near one of those hydrothermal vents. But here's the kicker. Luca was not some simple starter kit organism. It already had DNA, a complex genetic code, and all the machinery to build proteins. This thing was already a seriously sophisticated microbe. And this, right here, is the major twist in our investigation. Because Luca, our oldest identifiable ancestor, was already so complex, it couldn't possibly have been the first living thing. The true origin of life, the actual first spark, is hidden even deeper in the past, in a whole lost world of organisms that came before Luca. So where does that leave our 4-billion-year-old cold case? Well, we haven't found suspect zero, but our investigation has turned up an incredible amount of evidence. The case is definitely not closed. Let's just quickly recap what our detective work has shown us. We know life showed up really fast on a pretty chaotic planet. We know the basic building blocks can form naturally, both here and in space. The whole RNA world idea is a really strong lead for how we get from pure chemistry to actual biology. And, maybe most importantly, we know that our oldest ancestor, Luca, was already so advanced that it's hiding an even older, deeper origin story. And so the investigation goes on. The search for that missing piece, for whatever happened between that first simple replicating molecule and the complex cell that Luca became, that's one of the most exciting frontiers in all of science. The ultimate cold case is still wide open, and it's a powerful reminder that some of the greatest mysteries are the ones written inside our very own cells.